Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is the Angels in Politics broadcast, and of course, you know that already. I am your host. I don't want to be your host, actually. I'm trying to refrain from classifying or identifying myself with any of these titles, but I am the white collar goon, the creative and artistic manifestation of Angels in Politics, and I guess I am just your servant at this moment. I am an open vessel, and as I decrease, the Lord Himself increases. The universe is using me as a conduit, and I am just providing you with whatever information that just comes off the top. I call it like a universal download. It's just one of those, like, the information comes in and I just must release it, I must purge it, and that's where I'm at with it. First and foremost, have you had your breakfast? Okay, so you haven't broken your fast as of yet. So no lunch either for you. Okay, so this is actually good because I know most people shouldn't, well, they say you shouldn't really talk about your fast, but this is like a personal, or this is like an intimate connection that we have here, so I can tell you these things. I am currently fasting right now, and I think that it's okay. Of course, you're aware of the medicinal, spiritual, psychological, mental, cognitive, and social benefits of fasting, emotional benefits of fasting, physical benefits of fasting. Oh my gosh. There are a number of benefits and medicinal improvements in that regard. But in order to fully receive that, they say, who is they? I don't know. But I guess in scripture it talks about, maybe, I don't want to quote scripture if I don't know it, but maybe they say you shouldn't talk about you fasting. You should keep it to yourself, because that's a connection, or that's a relationship with you and your universal higher order. God, Jesus. Some of you may be aligned to God, but your intermediary, your savior, may be of a different name, of a different orient. This is not my concern. I think as long as you are aware of a spiritual higher power and you are leading yourself to alignment, or to opening yourself to the universal laws of nature, and that is what, it's all created by the same hand. You might have a different name from it, or for it. This is okay. But I will tell you about this. I will be fasting for the next few days. I'm drinking water now. I'm gonna refrain from any type of, or any sort of stimulant. But I will juice. Okay, so it's not like my other fasts that have been just water fast, or sometimes there's been what are they called, like alternative uh, herbal substances, in the sense of like bladder wrack and ashwagandha and burdock root and sea moss, Irish sea moss, and moringa and spirulina, things of that nature. So like supplements is the term that I'm looking for. Herbal supplements inside of hot water, or you know, combined with water. Sometimes, I might put that in a tea, green tea, something that doesn't have caffeine, that's non-caffeinated, honey sometimes, but very seldom. Or if you're doing like just a day fast, a 24-hour fast, I would say it's beneficial for you to have water with hot water with lemon and cayenne pepper and a little honey. If you're looking for like that sweetness, the sweetness does, so it actually plays a big difference, quite a big difference, with just the make it palatable, I guess. So yeah, water, lemon, cayenne pepper, if you're like me who likes a little bit of kick, a lot of cayenne pepper, and then I throw in pink Himalayan salt, and sometimes, of course, I'm always talking about the apple cider vinegar, so apple cider vinegar too. So that's a good I don't know what I will call it, purifier, mucus buster. I don't know if that really pertains to the mucus, but it really helps with just detoxing the body and ridding yourself of the intrinsic and internal toxins that are building up. And just one day out of a week, maybe one day every 2 weeks, maybe once a month, if you can do a 48-hour fast, something just like this, just to restart the system, just to get the body going. And don't start it off like, if you have never fasted before, like maybe just start off with the intermittent fasting. Maybe just like have a breakfast, don't do lunch, then have dinner, or don't do breakfast, do the lunch and dinner. Maybe, something like this, or have a early dinner and have that time restricted window whereby you might finish eating at 6 p.m. Okay, have dinner at 5, maybe you finish at 6 and you won't eat again until 9 a.m. the next morning. Maybe that, whatever that is, a 15-hour window or something like that, or 16-hour window. Something like this might help you just get the system going. So boom. That is that isn't what the conversation was supposed to be, but I guess I don't really have a topic for for you, other than I do want to speak about just the saying, everywhere you go, there you are. Everywhere I go, there I am, that type of thing. And I didn't hear about that until, it makes perfect sense, of course, but I didn't hear about that until I was, hanging out with my homegirls, Mandy and Mary. That rhymes, right? Well, it doesn't rhyme, they just start with the same letter. But Mandy and Mary were two really good friends that were living at my ashram. Not my ashram, the ashram that I was staying at for the past month. And they knew each other prior to being there, because my homegirl was in the same integral yoga training program that I was in. That was the month-long training, and her friend Mary was uh, essentially an ashram yogi, so she was in an extended program. So she had been there for maybe 3 months or something like that, 4 months. So she had been there quite a while, but they knew each other from spiritual communities in the past. They were at the Omega Institute in upstate New York, or Rhinebeck, New York. They were in Colorado together, and I believe they were at Finhorn, the Finhorn Foundation. I believe that's in Scotland. So there are a myriad, or a number, a great deal of spiritual communities that are out there in the world, and you know overseas and abroad, but even here in the States, of course, you can find spiritual communities. I mentioned Colorado, but a number of them are in Arizona, New Mexico, California, of course. But you will find in the Pacific Northwest, Oregon, Washington State, that makes sense. But even here locally, like Yogaville was in Virginia, the Art of Living Foundation is in North Carolina, Boone, North Carolina. I mean, Georgia. I mean, there are so many, if you know what you're looking for. But to go back to the saying, everywhere you go, there you are. Um, it was funny because homegirl mentioned, she was like, "Oh, am I gonna be a different person?" Or I would presume I would be a different quote unquote person whenever I am at a different location, right? Geographically, environmentally, uh, physically, I am no longer in Rhode Island anymore. Now I'm in Hawaii. So is the Rhode Island girl still going to be the same girl whilst I'm in Hawaii? And to go back to the saying, everywhere you go, there you are. It's like 9 times out of 10, yeah. You know, um, Meaning, like, the things that you were doing, if you're from small town Idaho, or small town Iowa, you can go to Minneapolis, and it's popping in the Twin Cities. From what I've heard, I've never been. I want to go, and I'm putting that energy out there. It's popping in Chicago. I've never been, but that time is coming for me to show my face. But if you're from small town whatever, and you go to the cities like St. Paul, or Chicago, or you're in Milwaukee or something, where the movers and shakers are, like, that won't change who you are as a person. That's just that's just the backdrop. The backdrop has changed. You know, you're like a character in a book, and they place you in a different fantasy land or a different fantasy world, but the characteristics or the traits or the particularisms of that individual will not change unless he or she is open to experiencing new things, right? So that goes back into the big five personality traits: extroversion, the opposite would be introversion; agreeableness, the opposite would be disagreeable people; conscientiousness, conscientious meaning dutiful, hardworking, regimented, structured people; and the unconscientious or the non-conscientious individual will be somebody who's a bit free flowing, somebody who doesn't like order, somebody who doesn't want order, somebody who is into probably just lazy will be a better term. Neuroticism, people who are highly sensitive to emotional negativity, or they feel paralyzed, paranoid, anxious, and it stymies their growth as far as receiving any form of negative emotion. They internalize it, and it plays on their psychological, mental, physical, emotional self, spiritual self, more so than a non-neurotic person. So non-neurotic people tend to be people who just have, I won't say they aren't privy to feeling bad, or they don't have a high threshold for negative emotion. They just tend to be happier people. They tend to be more outgoing people. They tend to be more extroverted people, and that's probably something to do with their extrovertedness, their gregariousness, because they don't have the same neurotic psychological, triggers that are telling them that, like, somebody's out to get me, or somebody's out to fuck with me, or somebody is like, the world is a bad person, the world is filled with bad people, that type of thing. So extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, conscientiousness, and the last would be openness to experience, right? So openness to experiences is the synthesis of ideas and your, I guess, your thinking patterns, which will culminate to be, intelligence. So for people who like to experience new things, who are open to experience new things, it doesn't make them smart. It makes them what we would classify as creative. Creative people are looking for new things, new ideas, new music, new backgrounds, new people, new ecosystems, everything, not necessarily like new like a price tag on it, but new like something different, and they welcome the difference. Well, the people who aren't that open to experiences, it's not like they're unintelligent. They probably will be the people who are more conscientious. They're probably the people who are more dutiful, more industrious, more linear in the way of thinking, because it's not like they hate going to new places, or they hate or detest new music, or a new TV channel. It's like they like the order, they like the regimented structure, they like structure, they like predictability. So these people will be very intelligent, but intelligent in their specific lane, specific branch, like they're not going to be open to being this master of none, but jack of all trades. That's what I guess the opposing terminology would be: jack of all trades, but yeah, you're a master of none. Some people will be like, I don't want to do any of that. Like, give me my job. If I'm the accountant, let me be the accountant. If I'm the writer, let me be the writer. If I'm the technical person, let me know what the technical skills are. So back to everywhere you go, there you are. You find that based on these personality traits, you can play somebody in Hawaii, you can play somebody in New York City, you can play somebody in Miami, you can play somebody in bumfuck Virginia at an ashram called Yogaville, and the person that you were when you were a teenager, the person who you were whenever you were a child, the person who you were when you were a young adult, whatever that means, in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s, it will still play. It plays into who you are now. And I found that to be very true. I like the fact that they said that, because it's like, you know, when you hear Hawaii, it's like, oh my gosh, Hawaii 5-0, or like, were you out there, running up and down the beach like it's Baywatch? Were you like cracking a coconut with a fucking machete or something, drinking it? And were you eating eclectic food? And were you hobnobbing with the locals? Were you brushing shoulders with the I don't know, the Honolulu socialites or whatever the case may be? And it's like, well, were you doing that back in Pennsylvania? You know what I'm saying? Were you doing that in Idaho? And chances are, if you were, then you will be. You know, if you were that outgoing person, if you were that open to experience person, if you were that non-neurotic person, then you are most likely or more likely to have these similar experiences if you were in Buenos Aires, if you were in Rio de Janeiro, if you if you were in Kiev, Ukraine, you know, all of it will be this. I mean, all of those are different places, but like your experience will be the same in all of those places because of your personality, because of what you choose, how you choose to perceive the world. The world is a perception. The way you view the world is based on your mindset, and if your perception of the world is favorable, if it's if you have if you're a curious person, inquisitive person, open person, then that's how you will view the world, and the world will, I guess, receive you in that way. If you are to yourself. So in regards to my homegirls, they well, I can't speak too much about Mary, but Mandy was in my group. Mary was really outgoing. I believe, well, to a point, you know. So I mean, I guess for my group, I think I was talking to my homegirl, and she would say that she wasn't a person to go out and meet people like casually, or she wasn't the, hey, I'll just, you know, start up or string up a conversation with a random person and we'll make friends. Like, she wasn't that kind of girl, or she wasn't that kind of lady. I mean, at her current stage of life, and maybe in the past either. I'm pretty sure not in the past either. So she liked her personal space. She liked doing things, I wouldn't say just alone, but I mean, she liked being in control, very anal retentive of like structure, preciseness. She was a planner. As her job, she was a great director. Like whenever she worked in Colorado, she was like a shift manager or a director of whatever, coordinator of something, because that's who she was. Like, so at this community, when people were out there, like, you know, drinking and partying in Colorado, you know, weed is legal, people are smoking up, and in Omega, when people are out there doing whatever they're doing, she wasn't into that, you know. And that makes her, that makes her an asset as far as like being in a management role or a director role or a supervisor, in a role of being a supervisor, because she was, her personality is very linear and very structured, and it didn't deviate. It wasn't this I'm open to experience new things kind of girl. Like, she wasn't. So with that being said, if she wasn't in in this type of, if she wasn't working, if she didn't have a job, like, okay, your job is to go through these spreadsheets and follow up with this or do that, this, that, and the third, her, with her downtime, she probably wasn't doing too much of, she probably wasn't doing too much in regards to being like out, like outgoing, or just out in general. She probably was to herself in the room, watching movies, watching Netflix, enjoying her personal time. And that's cool when you live in, you know, wherever you live. But if you go to, for example, Hawaii, or if you're in Southern California and you're not from these places, so it's exotic. If you're from there, then it's like the same shit. But like, if you're from New Hampshire or something like that, or Connecticut, and somebody says, "Oh, you're in Argentina now? Wow, wow, you're in Santiago, Chile now? Wow, you're in San Diego? You must be living it up." And it's like, well, everywhere you go, there you are. You know, everywhere I go, there I am. So if I was, if I wasn't living it up in New Hampshire, chances are, like, put me in the most exciting place. Put me in the middle of Tokyo with 20 plus million people. Put me in Beijing, China with 20 plus million people. Put me in, you know, put me in Moscow, St. Petersburg, Russia, where it is popping off and kicking off every night. If I'm not that kind of girl, if I'm not that kind of guy, if I'm not that kind of person, don't expect, you know, the quiet guy from Austin, Texas or Dallas, Texas to move up to New York City, and all of a sudden he's out there in the art district, and he's out there in the meatpacking district, and he's out there in Soho, and he's hobnobbing with the motherfuckers because he knows what's going down, or he wants to know what's going down, and he's up in the midtown parties with the models and in the bottles and the champagne, and they're doing blow. Like, that's not a good thing. I'm just saying, like, if that wasn't what was going down in the past, it's like, it's not going down now. Like, it's just not what it is. So I like that. I like that. Knowing who you are, being open, being aware of your personality traits. I talk about the five personality traits often because I think Jordan Peterson is pretty spot on with that. Extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, conscientiousness, and experience to open, or openness to experiences, does play. I guess the foundational pillars or principles or virtues, so to speak, as to lead or combine or synthesize as to come together and figure out who you are. God bless. Namaste and namaskar.